Ely woke up before dawn in a tiny, rusted shack on the edge of Davao City, where the roof leaked during heavy rains and the walls were patched with old tarpaulins. The morning air was cold, and he could see his breath as he sat up on the wooden floor he shared with his younger siblings. Before anyone else stirred, he reached for his borrowed guitar, old, scratched, and missing one tuning peg. He touched it gently, like something fragile but precious. This guitar was his only escape, his bridge from poverty to possibility. He stepped outside, the sky still dark, street dogs roaming quietly, and began to sing in a low voice. His tone was warm, rich, hauntingly close to the Elvis he grew up listening to from a cracked radio his father once found in a junk shop. Every word he practiced carried the weight of sacrifices, days of hunger, nights of street performing, afternoons helping his mother at the market. Yet every time he sang, the world seemed to soften, just enough to let him dream. He packed only what he owned, 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, and a small towel, into a faded plastic bag. With just 120 Cuban pesos saved from weeks of singing at jeepney stops, he rode a jeepney to the airport. People stared at him, his worn-out slippers, his guitar wrapped in an old rice sack, his nervous but determined eyes. As he hummed quietly during the ride, a baby calmed down, and even the driver glanced back, surprised by the beauty of his voice. When Ely finally arrived at the Ireland's Got Talent venue, it felt like stepping into another universe. Massive LED screens flashed bright colors. Contestants in stylish clothes practiced vocal runs. Dancers stretched gracefully with professional precision. But Ely stood alone in the corner, holding his cracked guitar and wearing the same faded jeans he used for street singing. A staff member with a headset approached. "You're Ely, right? You're up soon." His heart pounded. He nodded silently. Backstage, he watched performers go before him, confident, polished, fearless. He felt like a stray cat wandering into a palace. But then he closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "This is for Mama, this is for Davao." When his name was finally called, his legs trembled. He stepped toward the stage, each footstep echoing in his chest like a drumbeat. The crowd murmured when they saw him, a skinny Filipino boy with tired eyes and a broken guitar. He swallowed hard, lifted his chin, and let the bright stage lights wash over him. Simon Cowell stared at him with a curious but cautious expression. The judges leaned forward. The audience waited. Ely took one deep breath. Then he brought the microphone close. And from that small, humble frame came a voice that didn't belong to a poor boy, it belonged to someone born to shake the world. The first note that left Ely's lips was so deep, so unexpectedly powerful, that the entire room froze. It was a voice shaped not by luxury or lessons, but by hardship. Raw, rough, yet beautiful. Simon's eyebrows shot up instantly. He leaned back, lips parting in disbelief, as if the sound hitting him didn't match the quiet, trembling boy standing on stage. Ely kept his eyes closed as he sang, not out of stage presence but survival. It was the only way to stop his fear from swallowing him whole. He imagined the narrow streets of Davao, the faces of the kids who watched him practice, the tired smile of his mother after long days at the market. These memories pushed his voice forward, filling every corner of the auditorium with aching truth. The audience listened, stunned. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some pointing at his torn shoes, others marveling at his tone, others already wiping tears they didn't expect to shed. The more he sang, the more the theater softened, absorbing the pain in every lyric. It wasn't just an Elvis tribute anymore, It was the cry of a boy who had learned to dream even when life told him he had no right to. Judge Amanda placed a hand on her chest. Her lower lip trembled. Every time Ely hit a high note, her eyes glistened even more. When he slid into the emotional bend of the chorus, she whispered, "Oh my God," almost afraid to speak louder and break the spell he was weaving with nothing but sound. Simon leaned forward slowly, elbows on the desk. His face softened in a way the audience rarely saw, no sarcasm, no judgment, just raw shock. This wasn't the performance he expected from a contestant who walked on stage looking like he had nothing left in the world. Yet here he was, delivering a voice so rich it felt like a time machine pulling Elvis back into the present. Ely reached the bridge of the song, and his voice cracked, not from lack of skill but emotion. Instead of ruining the moment, it deepened it. The audience gasped but didn't judge, instead, they felt him. Felt every hunger pang, every night he slept without certainty, every dream he held onto even when the world didn't give him a reason. When Ely opened his eyes during the final note, he locked eyes with Simon. For the first time, he saw something he had never imagined: admiration. Validation. A silent message saying, "You belong here." He held the last note longer than anyone expected, pouring the last piece of his heart into it. The sound vibrated through the stage floor and into the audience's chest, leaving everyone breathless. Then silence. A deep, sacred, stunned silence. For 2 full seconds, nobody moved. And then the entire auditorium erupted, cheers, screams, applause that felt like thunder rolling across the room. People stood up. A few cried openly. But in the middle of the noise, Simon Cowell stayed seated for one more second, staring at Ely like he couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Then, slowly, Simon stood up. Speechless. Ely stood there frozen, his fingers still curled around his guitar as the thunder of applause echoed through the theater. Golden light from the stage lamps shimmered against the tears streaming down his cheeks. He had never seen a room so grand, so bright, so full of strangers shouting his name like they had known him forever. The moment felt unreal, like he was floating outside his own body, watching a dream he never dared to ask for unfold right before him. Judge Amanda wiped her eyes again, trying to smile through her trembling lips. "You didn't just sing," she managed, her voice cracking. "You told your whole story with every note." She looked genuinely overwhelmed, as if Ely had pulled her into the world he came from, where poverty was normal, where hope was rare, where music was the only thing that made life bearable. She pressed a hand to her heart, still shaking. "I felt every bit of it." The crowd cheered louder, sensing how special the moment was. Before Ely could respond, Simon pushed back his chair and stood up. He walked toward the microphone slowly, as if each step required him to steady himself. His face wasn't its usual tough mask, it carried something raw, something human. When he finally spoke, the room fell silent again. "Ely," he said, voice low but powerful, "I have heard hundreds of Elvis tributes, but I have never heard someone sing him with this much honesty." Ely's breath hitched. His knees weakened, but he forced himself to stay upright. Simon continued, his eyes locked on Ely. "You sang like someone who has lived every line of that song. You sang like someone who has fought for every second of his life." He exhaled deeply. That wasn't just good, that was life-changing. The audience erupted again, some cheering, others crying openly. Then, as if possessed by pure instinct, Judge Connor stood abruptly, his chair screeching behind him. Without hesitation, he slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. A burst of music exploded. The theater was set ablaze with gold. Thousands of glittering confetti pieces rained down from the ceiling like blessings falling straight from the heavens. Eli gasped, his hands flying to his mouth as he felt himself collapse to his knees. The confetti stuck to his hair, his cheeks, his clothes, tiny golden promises that life could finally change. The crowd roared his name, Eli. 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 The sound hit him like a tidal wave of love he had never felt before. Simon stepped onto the stage, something he didn't often do. He approached Eli slowly, kneeling beside him. Gently, he placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "You're not just a singer," he said quietly. "You're a miracle." Eli sobbed openly, overwhelmed, unable to speak. He had dreamed of singing for a crowd, but never this. Never gold raining from the sky. Never judges crying. Never Simon Cowell, the world's harshest critic, kneeling beside him with respect. In that golden storm, Eli realized that the boy who once sang on the dusty streets of Davao had finally been seen. And the world would never forget his name.